Hello, I do hope today finds you safe and well. My name is Scott Deaver, and I am the Chief Technical Officer of Certitude Digital in Oceanside, California. For those of you who do not know, Certitude Digital holds a number of patents and patents pending in the arenas of cybersecurity, identity authentication, process isolation, and enciphering. We have the only technologies on Earth capable of solving the entirety of the cybersecurity problems of today and tomorrow. We happen to be a startup beginning our search for outside capital after self-funding for 12 years in stealth mode, building and proving out our innovations. Recently, SoftBank, a massive tech venture capital firm emanating from the telecommunications industry in Japan and a major player in investing in Silicon Valley, was exposed as the whale that was artificially pumping up tech stock prices on the NasDaq exchange during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whale is a gambling term for a player who can place wagers so large and so frequently that they change the odds or house rules, or at least alter the landscape of the other players. Very recently, within a few days before I recorded this video, SoftBank was caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and the NasDaq averages have dramatically collapsed over the past few trading sessions. At Certitude Digital, we have honestly and fully committed to all of our available resources, including time, to solving the cybersecurity problem today, with the expectation that when we emerge, it would be to a level playing field and a fair examination of our work. Instead, we came out of stealth mode into a situation where Silicon Valley is openly and aggressively both incompetent and corrupt. And it has become all about the greed and 90-day quarterly windows of focus that make it impossible for them to do anything but pursuing the low-hanging fruit. No depth whatsoever. It's got so bad that the wealthiest CEO of by far the richest company in Silicon Valley, Tim Cook of Apple, is now a billionaire, even though he has never innovated a single product or service his entire career. None of Apple's products or services are best of breed or state-of-the-art anymore, nor have they been for a long time, and the company relies completely on products and services that were invented by a guy, Steve Jobs, who died nearly 10 years ago. Apple now has the most insecure platforms and applications in the industry. Google has known how to hack iPhones for nearly 30 years. Apple has to stifle and stymie innovation from the outside world every day just to compete. So much for American ingenuity. Silicon Valley has become living proof of the fact that greed is a lower brainstem function, an amalgam of survival instinct and territorial aggression. No higher brain functions needed to be engaged. By Silicon Valley's definition of business, any gold-toothed thug with a handgun robbing a liquor store qualifies as an entrepreneur, since they would rationalize the guy as merely maximizing a situational advantage and market leverage to return value to his investors. Unless he happens to be black or a woman, of course. But that points up an entirely different issue with Silicon Valley. It is the attitudes and conduct of the CEOs and venture capitalists that propagate that nonsense. SoftBank's unethical behaviors in the support of its own interest and agenda at the expense of the entire industry are both symbolic and symptomatic of a horrific environment they created that is crippling any true American innovation and the startups that make it possible. So that then is the backdrop against which I wrote an open letter to Masayoshi Son, CEO of SoftBank. A copy of that letter can be found in PDF form on our CertitudeDigital.com website, on either of our articles or our videos web pages, which you can find from the main menu bar. Now then, let me read that letter. It is on our Certitude Digital letterhead. It is dated September 8th, 2020. Masayoshi Son, Chief Executive Officer, SoftBank Group Corporation, Tokyo, Japan. By email. Masayoshi Son, I am thoroughly confused. How could SoftBank accumulate all those resources and all that talent and miss the so very obvious? You just took a $10 billion bath, exposed as the whale who propped up all the worst elements of Silicon Valley, while missing $1 trillion given that was sitting right in front of you in the same space. Seriously? Your presence in the equation is incredibly important, and you could do a world of good that would both impress your investors and make you a god to your family, your grandchildren, and their children for many generations to come. You're obviously not stupid, or lazy, or unaccomplished. The only difference between you and I is that you have money and I don't, but only because of personal choices. So I assume these huge missteps have been because of innate prejudice, lack of real-world experience. No, the ivory towers you live in are not the real world, or simple dearth of awareness. Oh, and I have read and understood Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which, due to a deeply held racism within the Japanese people against the Chinese, you may have avoided. I do not expect this email to go anywhere, though it and you will no doubt end up being the source of great laughter and bemusement to historians if it does not. Someone is going to take what I am telling you and run with it, and in so doing establish themselves as the next decacorn, or better, but as a means of stretching my own awareness, affirming my beliefs about arrogance, if nothing else, I am going to teach you how you identify real opportunities. Number 1, find the greatest source of societal pain and angst you possibly can in the digital realm. Why? Because that is where all the free publicity is. Japanese have been throughout their history an intensely private and tribal people, and so do not understand in the least, even now, the machinations of publicity, especially free publicity. On top of that, sadly, the true mechanics of leadership have never been publicly taught to the masses either, reserved to the already empowered and entitled few. So, the entrepreneurial lay Japanese copy and follow, hardly attribute to the intellect, discipline, and work ethic. But as SoftBank, you don't get to hide behind your ancestral limitations if you want to succeed. You had better lead, and to lead, you need to be visible. And to become visible, you need publicity. And to attain publicity efficiently, it needs to be free. This is not rocket science. To get vast amounts of free publicity, go where society is already focused on its own pain. In the real world, in that of graphic novels, that means rushing to the aid of young, pretty blonde women being raped in huge urban centers by roving gangs of poor tattooed black men doing drive-bys and carrying knives. But in the digital world, the low-hanging fruit, publicity-wise, is in cybersecurity, including by extension identity authentication. Number 1 sub A. Why cybersecurity? This is why people are questioning your vision, because some things are so obvious. This is a $6 trillion pain point annually in the digital arena per Gartner, and it has been a gaping, open, oozing, bleeding, infected wound for decades, one that is growing exponentially. There already exists a $180 billion a year industry, again Gartner, filled with nothing but inept dinosaurs, ill-conceived startups, and millennial get-rich-quick schemes, which has failed miserably for more than 4 decades to put even the slightest dent in the problem. And all of these failings are broadcast daily, in print, and all over the internet as massive hacks dominate the news cycles, an absolute orgasma of free publicity. Number 2, find an area of the problem domain where the protagonists and antagonists are already clearly defined. No marketing effort required. Why? The vision thing again. Because leadership is established most quickly by ascending the ranks of either side of an already existing classic interlocking or sworn enemy groups. The constituencies are well defined and inflexible, the loyalty is firm, the passions explosive. And in cybersecurity identity authentication, the opposing groups are extremely well established and have been for decades. On the one side, you have hackers aligned with malevolent nation states like Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, and Israel, as well as corrupt Silicon Valley bullies like IBM, Symantec, FireEye, and Intel McAfee, who leverage fear of hackers and hacker exploits to self-fraudulent and failed protection schemes to unwary and helpless victims. That side of the conflict, the antagonists, already has selected their masters and evil emperors. But in the most astonishing opportunity to ever present itself on any business stage, at any time, anywhere, the protagonists in this epic battle are comprised of every other human being, business entity, government, and non-government organization, or NGO, on planet Earth. And not only that, they have no champion whatsoever, no army, and no legitimate defenses. The business entity stepping into that void and performing well is an instant General Dwight D. Eisenhower bringing the troops to storm Normandy and entitled to all the accolades and awards that history brings to such a nexus of opportunity and ability. Number 3, deliver the goods. Bring to this highly public competition the tools and methods to clearly demonstrate your superiority. Solve the underlying problems, not the symptoms. Do it for the public good, not immediate profits. And let the rewards for having done the right thing the right way flow back to you tenfold, as they did to the United States after their intervention in World War II. This is where Certitude Digital comes in. We are a startup in Southern California, and we already have the goods. We have proven technologies that address all of the core underlying issues, not merely symptoms, in cybersecurity, identity authentication, process isolation, and modern keyless multivariate enciphering. We can do incredible things. We own these technologies as proprietary intellectual property registered solely under us. If it mitigates the pain any, you're not the only ones in the digital realm lacking vision. No one saw us coming, mostly due to the arrogance of the status quo. And that's it. We've been out here a few years now, and for all your posturing, splashing around, and throwing your weight around in that same time frame, you never saw us. We're without doubt the most obvious and clear path to market segment domination, as any other opportunity you have in your portfolio. We are the automatic hydraulic transmission in 1938, the transistor in 1943, the spinning magnetic electronic disk drive in 1953, quantum computing in 1992. But you do have that vision problem, and you never saw us. Instead, you went down an easy, ego-driven path that has left you financially wounded and with egg all over your face in the middle of the largest public arena in the world. You will not take me up on it. You'd likely prefer the financial equivalent of harakiri, whatever you perceive that to be, rather than humble yourself before a nobody like me. But with this email, I am giving you a second chance to recover all your businesses and profit many times over, to erase the shame and embarrassment, and to finally stand in the place your investors and supporters have always expected you to be. As for me, I'm a math guy, and I know the numbers do not lie. You could take Certitude Digital's technologies global for, say, $10 million or less, a tiny drop in the bucket by your standards, and make a serious dent in the cybersecurity marketplace in less than a year's time. You'd be well on your way to an astonishing bargain with the world. You would be welcomed by the entire population of the planet to $1 trillion a year in annual revenue to permanently squelch $6 trillion a year in losses they are experiencing today. Why? Vision, vision, vision. Because 1 trillion is 1/6 of 6 trillion, of course. 1/6 of something is 16.67%, a figure far less than most people regularly pay as the annual interest rate on their credit cards. Who in their right mind would not pay $1 to get back $6 of something that was otherwise irretrievably lost? And who in their right mind would not repeat that enriching process 1 trillion times over if it were possible to do so? There are a lot of unintelligent people on the planet, far more than the 1% of us who drag humankind forward. And there are many more who allow their character flaws and other failings to outweigh any talents and contributions they might make. So we know, and would not be the least bit surprised, that an email like this to someone like you, to a public email address monitored by a minimum wage, minimum education employee, or a bot, would get tossed aside. Getting your immediate attention directly was never the goal anyway. This is where knowing your Sun Tzu would have been helpful. The point here is to get this open letter into a number of different forms: emails, videos, social media posts, LinkedIn articles, etc., that people can share and discuss. Of course, far and away the greatest percentage of readers will jump to the immediate conclusion that this letter, or more likely me personally, is insane, effing nuts in the American colloquial, and dismiss it out of hand. There is a significant criminal element among the established titans of Silicon Valley who profiteer off the game style protection racket that their version of cybersecurity, based on their incompetent derivative field offerings, have become. Certitude Digital's technologies are already under regular attack from them, so nothing new there. But if you recall my lessons to you about free publicity in my opening paragraphs, if you are able to present to a large enough group of people on a grand enough stage an idea so extreme, so outlandish, so improbable that it both grabs their attentions and it occurs to just a very few of them that, hey, this is just crazy enough that it might work. One or two might cast aside any pride, arrogance, blindness, or prejudice to look at least a little into what you are saying. If those one or two find in their research a 12-year investment in the technology by an accomplished NASA-trained engineering professional that has resulted in 6 issued U.S. patents and many more coming, in demos that are visible to the public, in a million lines of code that can be explored under non-disclosure, in well-documented books, white papers, articles, and videos that a technically savvy person can see as logical and well implemented, they might become interested, perhaps even passionate. If they also happen to be empowered, or well networked, or share their discovery with associates who are, that partnership between them and Certitude Digital is off to the races, the only opportunity in anyone's portfolio on Earth that could achieve $1 trillion or more in revenues in a relatively short period of time. This is why someone like me writes an email like this to the head of the largest investment group on the planet, as they have just publicly humiliated, made damn fools of, is the term we hear around here, themselves in the worst way possible on the global stage. I am not here to laugh at you. I'm here to help you. But if your condescension, pitiable field of vision, prejudices, and habits are baked in and not correctable, then I'm here to exploit you and leverage off your misery in the name of public service solving the massive cybersecurity dilemma. We will attach links to this letter to every digital domain, financial services, internet posts we can find, send letters to the editors of every financial related news organization we can, and email every member of the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Over time, we'll get this open letter in front of a lot of people. If you would like to just as publicly reverse your fortunes and become a true hero to all of those who are mocking you now, join with us and we will together forever solve the greatest problems ever known to the digital realm, those of cybersecurity and identity authentication. You have the resources and reach to help us. We certainly have the technology, vision, and barriers to entry to help you. But should you dismiss our general offer of first refusal, we will gladly leverage the publicity we can glean from the combination of your visibility and stupidity to attract one or more other partners who can then take us all to the promised land. For the edification of your staff and audience, there are some informative links to documents, videos, articles, and other resources that will help you understand Certitude Digital's technologies. And here follows a list of links that we posted within the letter, which you can see by going to our website at www.digital.com and reviewing the letter in its PDF form, or by exploring the website itself. The letter concludes with regards, F. Scott Deaver, and my signature. And thank you.